Hey, y'all. I am Draco Self Important, and I think you should listen to me. There's a cat just out of your view, just in case you were, hey, can you like pick your head up? No, he's like on the wrong side to catch the camera. Come here. Will you come prove that you exist? Meow. Did you hear it? At least you can hear it, even if he won't come here. Anyway, I don't really know what I'm going to talk about. I think probably grief. But who knows? Whatever the title of this says is what I actually talked about. Oh, there he goes. See, now he's going to show up. Because I'm just going to talk to you, and then I'm going to watch it back, and then we're going to see what happens from there. Um, I've had a rough day or so. The beginning of my weekend, as documented on the internet, was not great because of my own brain malfunctions. And then I came home last night, and my kid was home because only one of them was supposed to be home tonight, or last night rather. Also tonight. Um, Meow indeed. And that kid um, somehow did not understand the location app that they asked me to download so that I would stop going, send me your location. Um, and that app notified me because the kid left home at like damn near 11 o'clock at night. This is a 14-year-old, y'all. You know who's not supposed to leave home at like 10 something on a Sunday night? A 14-year-old. And so I text, I call, I text, I call, I text, I call. I finally get text responses back because once, yeah, the battery saver was on the phone, so I was not getting accurate location updates. And so I couldn't just go show up because I was like, where are you? I will just come and get you. Because the excuse was, well, how am I going to get home? Because by the time I'd figure this shit out, it was beyond the last bus. Because normally, when the kid does stupid shit like this, I'm like, get yourself home. Or like, I didn't bother to get up in time for school. Cool, the buses here are free, so get them and take them to school. Because why am I spending money that I so don't have on gas to drive you to a place where other people who live here are also going to that place at the same time? You just need to go stand on the sidewalk, and a lovely man who I have known for years because we've lived in the same fucking place since, I don't know, like 2016. It's been the same fucking bus driver who drives, literally does the elementary school and then comes back for the middle school and high school. All of the children, like I've known that he's yeah, I've talked to him. He's dealt with my kids' weird shit because, man, I, if you've watched me for this long, you probably have figured out I'm weird, even if it's just the like 3.5 minutes of this particular video. But if you've watched any of my, like, I'm weird. This is like years worth of adjustment to get me here. Can you imagine me in school? Let me just tell you, my oldest, first week of kindergarten, bit a kid on the bus. That's how I started schooling with my children. Um, Taking advantage right now of the fact that Washington is education free until the age of 8. I wish I would have known that with my oldest because I would not have tortured everyone by sending that child to school way before that should, like, two of my three children are emotionally immature. And I say that as someone who gave them this trait. Like, in some ways, I was incredibly, like, once I hit puberty, I was like, dun 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 dun, dun, I'm a superhuman and I can understand everybody's everything. That's a gross exaggeration, but it makes the point. I speak in hyperbole a lot. if I say something that sounds like a gigantic exaggeration, like it's probably hyperbolic, man. I'm probably saying it to make a point. Like unless I say no, literally this gigantic thing. Like I speak in hyperbole. Please don't be the fucking guys clipping me together on the internet going, and then he said this, and then he. I fully lost my train of thought. This is what Kevin Smith refers to as falling into a pothole. Although at this point, I don't think that it's so much a pothole, which is generally induced by cannabis, as a my brain is just tired and I can't even hole of it all. So yeah, education free in Washington. See, the other thing is I've got like a short term memory issue, but my long term memory is not quite as bad, and so I like. Oh my god, it's so funny because when I was working, I worked on the phones, and the way that my particular memory issue works, I will lose things, but if I stop thinking about it, then my brain has time to put it into long term memory and then it comes back. That's my best explanation of what's happening based on the things that I've researched. Like, I'm not a doctor, scientist, whatever, but like, so essentially, like right there, where I forgot about what I was talking about, I stopped thinking about it for a minute and was just like, whatever, I'll move on to something else. And then my brain went, ooh, boom, boom. And so when I was working, I would carry on two different conversations because I digress all the time anyway. So that's like really a natural thing for me to do. And so I would have some like, hey, how's your life going conversation going at the same time. I would have the, hey, these are the work things I need conversation going. And I would bounce back and forth between those two. Or sometimes, if I was being really efficient, I would have two different work conversations. That was usually someone that I didn't actually want to talk to, and so I was like, ooh, I need these other things as well as these numbers. But then I can bounce back and forth between those things and still be productive while not at all remembering what's going on. It's pretty ridiculous. Um, but had I realized when my oldest was this young that I could just not send that kid to school, sweet Jesus, would have saved us all so much fucking trouble. I can teach you the alphabet at home, bro. Like, you know. I do have the baby registered for homeschooling. I am qualified to do that with my bachelor's degree for elementary school anyway. I wouldn't be qualified, I don't think, to teach her anything like advanced. I don't think I could do the homeschooling without enrolling her in some sort of online program. Initially, we had her in a hybrid, like, no, it was an online program, but it was a local, and it was like the potential for her to go and like actually interact with the kids that she, but oh my god, that child is so incapable of sitting in front of a screen for like 30 minutes, let alone a couple of hours for school for a first grader. Like, it was just, it was, no. Incredibly smart kid, incredible desire to learn, but you have got to do it in a way that like is intriguing and isn't like sit down and learn shit, because that doesn't like, you know, I have never seen a small child get so excited about an art museum in my entire goddamn life. um, I made a deal with her that if she did the schoolwork that she was supposed to, that we could go to museum of her choosing. um, because I am the unemployed and have been for ages. um, I get the EBT, food stamps, what have you. If you want to bitch about it, okay, sure. If not, my kids wouldn't eat. I don't know what to tell you. It's not like, yeah. But with the card that entitles me to such, I also get discounts and or free admission to a bunch of like museums and zoos and stuff, because they're like, maybe poor kids should have some cultural enrichment as well, and I am super thankful for that. But we have a local children's museum that we go to all the time. It's actually my former employer pays for all of the EBT recipients getting free admission there. So that's kind of fun because, you know, It was always something that I was really like excited about and proud of, and then to like get to take advantage of it is funny. But I'm like, oh, good. See, they do good. Like my life is better because of them. You know. Um. So, God damn. So I said to her, hey, we can go to the Tacoma Children's Museum. Because I hadn't been there since I'd been there with the older kids when they were little. And she was like, ooh, new one, yes. And then I was like, there are other museums up there as well. At some point, there's a glass museum up there that I need to go to. But I'm telling her, and she's like, glass museum, that sounds awful. Um, but I said, there's the Tacoma Art Museum, and she went, art museum, and she got super excited. We'll circle back to the glass thing. So she's like stoked, right? And like I'm thinking like, oh god, she's super excited, but we're gonna get there, and like it's not gonna be that exciting, and she's gonna be like, oh god, no, man, I have never seen like this was a 6-year-old child who was enthralled with everything. There was like jewelry, there was mixed media shit, there was obviously a bunch of stuff on canvas, and there was video and sculpture, and like she loved all of it because she makes the weirdest art sometimes, like gluing all manner of weird things together. And like, we'll draw like 3 things on a piece of paper and give it to you and be like, this is my art, I love it, do you love it? I'm like, uh-huh. Because like, of course, like you made it and you love it and it makes you happy. And like, what am I going to be like, it doesn't look like a cow? Most of the time, if she's trying to actually draw something, it does look like that thing, but that's not usually her style. She does the same sort of shit that I did when I was her age, which is just like weird abstract shit. All of the shit when I was her age looked like a fucking Pollock painting. Like it was all just splatter, man. Like I loved to splatter with watercolors. That was like my favorite thing. I wish I had the shit from when I was a kid because I bet it would look really cool. Um, but we took her to the art museum, and of course, because it's the area in which I live, in the greater Seattle, Tacoma, what have you area, there are Chihuly glass pieces at the Tacoma Art Museum. So there are examples of the beautiful, hand blown fucking glass that I was trying to get her to go look at the glass museum in the art museum that we went to. And she was like, "Oh my god, it's beautiful," because it was glass flowers. Like they were huge. They were like 3 foot, like I don't know, like daisies or some shit with like these big long stems and like giant petals. Like they were like suspended in the air. It was an absolutely beautiful installation. I love glasswork. I really do. Um, but like, I was like, this is glass art, and she was like, oh, and I went, the glass museum is like all stuff like this, and she was like, oh, okay, we can go there. We have not gone since, but we like that's. It was just so funny because it's like forever, my children do not believe that I know them. Like, all of them. I'll be like, hey, this thing, you would really like this thing. Because if I come to them with stuff that, like, I don't like, if I'm like, I don't know, would you like this? Like, the middle kid is a complete fucking wild card. I've stopped presuming anything that kid likes. Stopped. Because, like, I don't think she knows what she likes half the time. I think, in fact, she protests against things that she likes when they're not cool. Like, 14-year-olds are crazy beasts. I don't know what to tell you. Um, but the other two are pretty fucking predictable. The other two get along really well despite being like really disparate in age. Like they're like 9 years apart or something, man. But they have such like kindred spirits, and they're so similar in so many ways, like the way that they've developed, and they just relate to each other really well. Um, because they're both like super smart and articulate, and have the interests that they're interested in, and they're super passionate about those things, and like, the same sort of like probably autistic traits that I've got. I've kind of intentionally not tried to get a diagnosis of any kind in that department for my oldest because I don't think it would serve him. He's had an IEP since he was in kindergarten. He bit a kid on the bus. What choice did I have? I had to be like, hi, hello, help. Like, clearly, like, there's something going on here, guys. Um, but the healthcare system is a shit show. And as mentioned regarding my own healthcare, I've had to change insurance way too many times. And in the process of that, I've had to change providers for the kids as well. And I went through a shit show when my oldest was very young, trying to get, psychiatric, psychological, whatever the hell, treatment, diagnosis, what have you. Um, yeah, I had, like, I remember the worst was the time that they're Franciscan now, but they were group health at the time. I went to the child psychologist, explained to them everything that was going on. The lady was very much like, I can't handle this. I made very clear to her that medication was not where I was at that point with that child. We had tried nothing, so medication was not my first option for the 5-year-old, And at this point, the child has never been on medication and is old enough now to be like, no, I don't want to, and so like that's not on the table at this point. Because you cannot force people to take meds. Even people who think that it's a good idea, it's sometimes hard for them to take meds, so I'm certainly not gonna try to make some kid who doesn't think he fucking needs them. Like, that's not gonna help anybody out. But this particular child, at 5 years old, having tried nothing, that's not what my goal was. However, telling this child psychologist this, she refers us to the psychiatrist in the same medical complex. So we go to that office, and I sit down and I tell this person all those things, and then she goes, well, I don't know why she referred you to me if you weren't looking for meds, because that's why you sent, like, I don't do like counseling, so like I don't know what the, like, I don't understand. So basically she was just blowing me off because she didn't feel like she could handle my kid. Either that, or she thought that if she sat me in front of the psychiatrist that I would take meds, but the psychiatrist made zero attempt to talk me into meds because, as previously mentioned, I hadn't actually tried anything yet. Like, even the psychiatrist was like, well, damn, I feel like some therapy might be a good first start. Like, guys. Which is funny because my youngest is on meds. And that's something that was heavily considered and not the kind of meds that they were suggesting putting the oldest on. Different meds for different needs, but like, and I had to like talk her mom into it because her mother was pretty highly medicated as a child. And I was like, listen, that I have an educational background on this. I've worked with kids professionally, like older than her, but the age of my older kids. Like, this is something that, is like important to me. Um, so like, I'm not taking this lightly. And if it doesn't work, it's something like, we can stop, like, whatever. Just like, know that I'm not trying to like stifle the child. I'm trying to make her life better. I'm trying to make it easier for her to exist. Because, there's like, and ADHD is not the thing that she's being medicated for. It's the thing I should be medicated for. But like, there's this trope about medicating children that is usually the like, kids really rambunctious, let's medicate them so that they settle the fuck down kind of a situation. And like, I feel like that was kind of the angle that I was getting with the oldest. Not that even like, he may have ADHD. I don't know. I don't, because I'm not here to presume what things are, like the way that the kids process shit. Like, they're their own people. Like, it's, I am not a diagnostician. I think I can do a pretty good job of self-diagnosing because, like, I am a navel-gazing fuck who knows absolutely everything about the workings of my brain, pretty much. Like, I can watch it go wrong even when I can't make it stop. Like, I can, and if I can't figure it out in the moment, it usually, like, as soon as whatever chemicals are happening that are making my brain explode dissipate, I can kick back and go, oh, that's why I did that thing. And, I've gotten to the point in my life now that I can apologize and explain my shit. And, like, I haven't done anything super crazy that has caused people to bail. So, I mean, I guess that's good. I've bailed a lot on people. Yeah. So, as previously mentioned, my mother recently died. And like it's brought up feelings and thoughts and about my brother because my brother died in July. He's 32. I think I said he was 31 at some point. For some reason in my brain he stuck at 31, and I think that's because that's the last time I really feel like he was like holy him. Like I feel like there's like he was never quite there after that. Because his 32nd birthday was not fun for him or any of us. I was a mess, so I was not like there. Oh, God. I've got, ooh, and I have it within reach to actually show you. I got this silly little shark journal. These are like little Orbeez in here, which I love. I love a fidget. He also loved a fidget. I got this, like, within days of him dying, so that I could write to him. Because I had this desire to text him, but I knew that if I was texting him, I would basically be texting his fiance. Or so I thought. Little did I know that none of us could get into the phone because he changed everything, which is annoying because we were supposed to do a podcast together, and I'd like to do it on his channel. It's called Smoking Bananas. I may end up doing it as a series here. I may create another channel and call it Smoking Bananas, but I like really, just for the integrity of it all, would like to have his. But like yeah, I assume there's some shit in there that he didn't want us to see, not in a creepy way, just in a hurtful way. Like I assume that he had like personal documents and things, and like I don't want to see the inner depths of someone's pain necessarily. And I kind of feel like knowing him that that's the sort of thing that like I feel like he might have been like journaling or something and not telling us. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe he was just having really in depth conversations with people that he wasn't talking about with other people, or I don't know, man. I don't think he was doing anything untoward, if you will. Um, you know. But I bought this little journal to write to him because I like my first thought, if anything happens, good, bad, or indifferent, if it's a thought that I want to share with another human, it's instantly Ian. Like boom, 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 boom. That's the first. And, it's now the beginning of April. And it was like, I don't know, July 5th, 6th. There's some. Mm, so, like, 9 months, right? And in the little thing that I wrote to him, I wrote that I was terrified that I would not constantly remember him because everything I thought about constantly immediately went to him. And I'm like, as horrible as it is, I'm more afraid that that will stop. And at this point, I'm pretty confident that it like won't. Like it's definitely not as severe, but I still think about him minimally once a day, most often. Like, and it's not like to be fair, I have set myself up with reminders, right? Like I've got, I don't know, I'm so bad at putting things in focus here. So this little guy, this little video game controller, it's a nondescript generic video game controller. I am sure I'm not going to be able to get the text on this in focus, but this is an urn. a teeny tiny little urn, a little amethyst charm because he was born in February. This is his birthstone. And on the back, it says Dad, Brother on the top line, and then an ampersand, and Uncle Ian on the bottom. I intentionally, I had to fit all the things because it's a small space because I couldn't put father, brother, because, that makes more sense than dad, brother, but I'm trying to jam all the things that he was into a thing. But hearing my youngest scream Uncle Ian, it is the most bittersweet memory because it brought me so much joy because they were both so happy. I want to go in depth talking about my brother, but I want to talk briefly about what. So my mom died, right? Do you hear the tone shift? Right. I hate that I'm not sad. I hate that when news gets to me, if it does, I'm sure eventually I would figure it out, but when my father eventually dies, I'm not gonna give a shit about that either. Haven't talked to that motherfucker since I was 16. I went back and looked at my last text messages with my mother because I thought the last interaction that I had with her was when she called me passive aggressive. But I forgot that a couple of months after that, she'd asked me for rodent cages that I'd borrowed. Because at one point the kid had a rat, and I had a guinea pig before I got, my big wooden hutch set up for them. And she sent me a herd of text messages. Didn't even give me an hour before she started harassing my kid about it. And it's I'll get to it when I get to it. This is the thing. It was July that the whole. So let me recap. In July, we went to her place when she was at a brief stay at home between hospital visits, essentially. And we had a visit for a family holiday. And she treated my middle kid like garbage and was a miserable fucking mess. And I felt like shit the entire time I was there. And I felt like shit when I left. And it was just why am I doing this? Every time I would try to talk to her, she would cut me off because she had no interest in talking to me. The only reason she interacted with me was to interact with the kids, and it's only the oldest and the youngest that she actually wanted to interact with at that point because she was pissed off at the middle kid. And P.S., pissed off at the middle kid over some shit, not their fucking fault. Not the kid's fault. That grown ass, old ass, grandparent ass woman had no fucking right to be upset with the, at the time, 13-year-old because of shit that had happened to the 13-year-old that fucked up everybody's life. Not the kid's fault. Not the kid's fault. But said some shit for not the first time that was totally fucking out of pocket about my fucking kid. And I was like, I'm fucking over it. And shortly thereafter, she went into the hospital. And then that's when the oldest was like, do you want to come with me to visit her? And I was like, sure. And then I thought about it and was like, not really. God, I don't want to go sit in a goddamn hospital, which I do not like being a hospital if I'm not working there. Like, I loved having jobs in the medical field. I'd love to do it again. I love helping people. But if I'm there not as an employee, there's something wrong and I don't like it. So, like, it was, that in and of itself was not something I was excited about. But I'm like, how's she going to act? What's she going to say? How shitty am I going to feel when I leave? And I sent her a text message where I literally said, I'm afraid to come and see you because I'm afraid of how I will feel. You talked shit about my middle kid that made me, like, I laid out to her in slightly shorter form, but just as clear and just as direct what I just said to you. And her response was passive aggressive. And then I didn't hear anything from her until September when she asked about rodent cages. And that's the last that's the last communication we had. Was me going, I'll get to it when I get to it. How's that for passive aggressive? I'm pretty sure, no, she did. A couple of weeks, a few weeks, probably 6, 8 weeks before she died, she was moved to a different facility. And she called and left me a voicemail, something about, are you taking care of the finances, blah, 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 which means one of two things. Either she was completely deluded and out of it and didn't realize that I not never have been involved in that shit because she had her sister as her power of attorney the whole time. Or it was an attempt at sounding confused to manipulate me so that I would call. I didn't, because I know nothing about the finances and was not willing to take that on, so I saw no reason to call to clarify. You may think that's shitty, but sorry. I don't know, man. Like, if the people who were like, oh, but those are your parents, you probably had parents that didn't suck. Like, I'm sorry, man. I'm not the best. I'm definitely not the best. But Jesus fucking Christ, I'm trying. And when I fuck up, I admit it. And I try to do different. Like, it is a very, very, very rare occasion that I put my foot down about some shit that I did. Like, if my kids are upset about something that I did, like, it's usually because it was, like, yeah, I guess a human would be upset. You know what I mean? Like, because I'm a human. Like, sometimes I'm a human with a fucking running mouth that never stops running. Like, sometimes, but, like, I never got any acknowledgement, and every time I would try to have, oh, dude, this thing's gonna cut off. I love you. Be safe. Make good choices.